Well, as you are sitting down, I just want to introduce myself. I'm not a very common face around here. My name is Hannah, and I work at this church. I love this church, and I love you guys so much. What Pastor Anthony, Matt, JJ are doing in this space, and for you guys, your leaders, and what you are bringing to this space when you are just paying attention to what the Spirit has for you, it's amazing. And there's nothing like it. Keep bringing your friends because they need it too. Yes? Okay. Well, we are continuing and, in fact, finishing our short series on 1 Peter. Now, last week you were gone and you were doing what? You were in the snow. How crazy. Do you guys remember the last time it snowed? How many of you lived here the last time it snowed? Like 7 years ago? Wow, actually a lot of you. And you were probably like, what, 6? 8, maybe? Okay. Did you buy mittens? Because my kids didn't have mittens at all. They just got a lot of socks really wet. Okay, that's not what we're talking about though. Okay, what we are talking about is 1 Peter. And Jay taught 2 weeks ago on the beginning of 1 Peter about an inheritance. And I want to recap a couple things he said that stood out to me from his message that I want you to keep in front of you. And the first thing was that everybody comes in this room looking for something. Maybe for you, you just came into this room looking to get away from your parents for an evening, looking to hang out with your friends. Maybe you're looking for a date. I see you. Okay, not with me, but like the person that you sat by. Yeah. How many people are so uncomfortable? Do you feel it? Just like the tension? Hormones. Okay. But here's what I would encourage. Whether you came here for all the right reasons or all the wrong ones, whatever that is, I would encourage you, if you dig a little deeper, to think about the real reason that you keep coming back here, or maybe the real reason that you came for the first time tonight. And if it's your first time, welcome. We love you. But think through what is different about this place, what really keeps you coming back. And maybe the deeper you dig, the more you'll realize that it's the love of God that anchors you here. So open up your hearts to that tonight. Secondly, Jay also said something about our inheritance. That's what he talked about. And our inheritance isn't an earthly one, but a heavenly one. And it comes from God, and it cannot be earned, but it is rather given as a gift. So I want us to remember that too tonight, that our inheritance isn't just something that we have to strive for. It isn't something we strive for at all, but in fact, it is a gift. It is a relationship with God and eternity in heaven with him. That is our inheritance. That's the best thing that anyone could give us, and God has given it to us freely. So that's where we are in 1 Peter, and I want to give you some more context of this book, because Peter, he was an apostle of Jesus who walked with him, lived with him for 3 years while he was on earth doing his ministry. And so Peter saw a lot of amazing things that Jesus did. And he helped start the early church. And he is writing now to a group of people that were dispersed, that have been sent away from their homes because they're being persecuted because they follow Jesus. He writes in verse 1, to those who are elect, exiles of the dispersion in Pontus, Galatia, Cappadocia, Asia, and Bithynia. He's writing to a whole group of people who are believing in Jesus but are struggling because of it. And what we're going to read tonight is Peter encouraging them in their faith, because here's what we have. We have 4 main things that are going to come up in these 2 verses: faith, joy, glory, and salvation. The main point of my message is this: faith in God leads to joy. Faith in God leads to glory, and faith in God and his son Jesus leads to salvation. So, what do you do when life gets hard? Because Peter's writing to a group of people whose life has become incredibly hard. What is it that you put your faith in when life gets hard? Because Peter tells us, as we'll see, you put your faith in God, that leads to joy and glory and salvation. Let's read our text for tonight. 1 Peter 1, 8 and 9. Though you have not seen him, you love him. That is the true meaning of faith, believing in something that you can't see. Though you have not seen him, you love him. Though you do not now see him, you believe in him and rejoice with joy that is inexpressible and filled with glory, obtaining the outcome of your faith, the salvation of your souls. So firstly, I want to talk to you about faith. Now, we all put our faith in something every single day, right? Faith, as the Bible defines it, is the assurance of things hoped for and the conviction of things not seen. So faith just means believing that something will happen or believing that something is true even though we can't see physical proof of it. So all the time, you put your faith in things. They might be small things, but let's say like you put faith that your car will start in the morning. Most of us assume that our car is going to start in the morning, right? For some of us, it's a bigger leap of faith than others. Does anybody in here drive like a really old car, like from 2006? Yeah, you do? Okay, because like, listen, when I was in high school and from where I was sitting, we drove like junkers. Now, I was in high school in 2006, but our cars were like from the 80s, bro. And so it was a real leap of faith for my car to start in the morning, especially living in a cold place. It was like you turn the key and it's like, and you're like, no. But it would like, and you'd be like, yes, did it. I knew you could do it, right? That's faith. Okay, well, y'all live in Bluffton where you're too rich and you drive cars that are probably newer than mine. Okay, it's fine. It's good. We can trade. You might have faith that you will recall what you studied for a test. Or if you're like in a play or you're in band or something, you might have to have faith that you will actually remember your lines when you get up on stage. That takes a modicum of faith even in yourself, right? It's easy though to put faith in those little things. You have faith that your two legs will carry you where you're walking. You have faith that your body will actually digest the food that you're eating and that it will give you nutrients. You put faith in these things whether you realize them or not. But all of these things like come to fruition really quickly right in front of you. Like you turn your car on, you have faith it'll start, and it starts. So right away, it's like that repetition over and over just leads to an easy thing to put your faith in. But what about those big things? So when you were little, did you believe in Santa? Okay, if you do still believe in Santa, raise your hand. Go out of the room because we're gonna have a big boy talk. Just kidding. I love you. Don't stay in this room, okay? I love you. Even if you're 11, it's time for this talk. Okay. Now, when you believed in Santa, you had to have faith that he was there, that he was real. Now, kids are really good at faith because they love to believe in magic. Now, I am a mean parent, and I've told my kids from the moment they were infants that Santa wasn't real. I know. I'm the worst. But I did it because I wanted them to believe me when I said Jesus was real. And I didn't want them to be mad at me when they were 15 and found out Santa wasn't real. They're like, is Jesus real too? I'm like, yes, okay. That was the reason. But anyway, my daughter, she's 7. I have a picture of her. Her name's Collins. Oh my gosh. She made those glasses. She's hysterical. But I have told all of my kids, now she has 4 brothers. I have told all of my kids that Santa's not real, and I don't like make a big deal about it because I don't want to ruin magic, but she chooses to believe in Santa despite her mom, who's never lied to her, telling her that Santa's not real. They had like an elf in their classroom, and she would come home, you know, one of those elf on a shelf. She would come home and be like, our elf moved. Santa's real, Mom. We're like, yes. No. I don't know what to do right now. But kids, they love to believe in magic because it's just a part of how their brains are, the development that their brains are in at the time. But honestly, sometimes as the older we get, the more it takes true faith to believe the things that God asks us to believe in. Now, other little things that we put our faith in, like I said, oftentimes they reveal themselves to us very quickly, and that's why we believe that we can put our faith in them. But maybe you're putting your faith in other things, like your friends. How many times have your friends let you down? Maybe you put your faith in things like your own future, your own success, your own intellect. We're going to put our faith somewhere. Everybody does. But faith in God is a big one. God knows it takes faith to believe in him, because we have to believe a book written down by people we don't know, because it was written thousands of years ago. And it's about a God who's outside of creation. He was never created. He just was and is to come. And we have to believe that he created the world. And then there was this man named Jesus who was said to come to earth as the embodiment of God himself. And he lived with zero mistakes, zero sin in his life, and died a painful death. And that death is said to save us. That death is supposed to be our redemption from our wrongdoing. And then he rose from the dead as a seal of our victory over death. That's a lot to believe, because nothing like that is before our very eyes ever. We don't see things like that. And I do understand that it's a lot to ask you to put your faith in, but we don't do that blindly. This Bible has more proof in it than you could ever know. And I wish that we had more time to talk about why I know that this book is true. Why I know that what God has said and what God does is true. That's a different message, but I'm telling you, whether you want to believe what I'm saying or not, that it all is very true. Faith is a foundation, the foundation of a God-ordained, well-lived life. And I'm not saying that it's easy, but I am saying that it is good. Because nothing else that we put our faith in will ever sustain us, will ever lead to the other things that we're talking about: joy, glory, and salvation. And when you are in a pit, when you are struggling, when you are dealing with, like Beverly just talked about, anxiety and depression and loneliness, nothing else that we put our faith in, not our friends, not our own intellect, not our own success, not even our family, will always 100% be there to catch us. Putting faith in God is the only thing that leads to joy, glory, and salvation. Now, let's talk about joy. Because faith is the foundation. That's what we need. But here's what faith in God leads to: joy. Now, I have another kid. We've got a lot of them. This is Shepherd. Okay, there's the context to this picture. I know it's grainy, but this kid feels so deeply, okay? And so this peace act of aggression is really love. This is his friend Crew, and it's one of his best buddies. And Crew looks like he's in agony, but Shepherd is in love. I mean, this is how this kid feels. And when he was 18 months old, it was Christmas time, and you have never heard joy come out of the deepest, darkest, shiniest place of a child's body. Because he would open up, he's 18 months, he's this tall, 2 feet tall, and he opens up this package, and it was like, that was really loud. I should have pulled the mic away. But he would scream. It didn't matter what it was. You could have given him an avocado pit, and he would have been like, this is the best thing I've ever seen. And he would cry, and he would hug you. And this child that feels things so deeply, to me, that's joy. And now, okay, I have a better definition for joy than just a kid opening up a present and being super, super gutturally excited. But this is what 1 Peter 1:8 we bring it back to. Though you do not now see him, you believe in him and rejoice with joy that is inexpressible. So having faith in God leads to joy. If whatever you put your faith in doesn't lead to joy, it's not the right move. So here's the difference between joy and happiness. I know you've probably heard this before, but happiness often leads to us needing to chase that feeling again. You get a good grade, you win a game, the guy or girl that you've been liking asks you out, Those are like moments of fleeting happiness. And that dopamine gets in our brain and we think, yes, I'm doing that again. And so we run after those things over and over and over again. But when you experience joy, something different happens. You experience joy and it goes deep into the bedrock of your soul and it leads to peace. And you think, I don't need to chase anything ever again. I have everything I need. That's joy. It's the difference between smelling a flower and being sustained by its fruit. Because if you get flowers, you're on your way to prom, your date gives you a bouquet of flowers, and they're beautiful. You put them in a vase, and you're happy with those flowers, but 2 weeks later, they die, okay? And then you're looking at them, and you're actually sad. That thing that brought you happiness is now making you sad. And then you look at your boyfriend, and you're like, give me more flowers. And he's like, girl, chill. But what if he planted you a fruit tree? That's joy. Because now you got oranges every day of your life. I don't know, just a thought. Okay, difference between joy and happiness, we get it? Okay, but having faith in God leads to joy, where it seeps into the bedrock of your soul and brings you peace, a lasting contentment that you didn't know was possible. And that leads to your identity, feeling like I can be whoever God calls me to be, and I don't have to be what the world wants me to be. And that leads us to glory. It's good. Oh my gosh, it's good. So having faith in God leads to joy that is glorious. Only God has glory and has glory to give. But the Bible tells us actually in 1 Peter also, right before our passage, says this in verse 7, so that the tested genuineness of your faith, more precious than gold that perishes, even though it's tested by fire, or more precious than flowers, even though they die, may be found to, that wasn't in there, I made that up, may be found to result in praise, glory, and honor at the revelation of Jesus Christ. So when our salvation is realized, when the whole point of our faith comes to fruition, we will receive glory. And here on earth, the things that give us glory are what? Winning, being on top, being the best, receiving an award, winning an Oscar. I mean, think of the world's most prestigious awards. That's the world's definition of glory. But God's definition of glory is going to be living with him in eternity forever and being raised to a new perfect being that lives in this lasting state of joy and peace and relationship and beauty and love. And we, it says, will be glorified. Only God has true glory, and only he can ascribe that glory. But I want to say that like happiness, worldly glory is temporary, and the glory that God gives on earth isn't going to look like earthly glory, earthly awards. Because in the kingdom of God, so many things look backwards than we expect them to look, than we've been trained for things to look on earth. You think of glory and you think of being elevated, being the best. But God thinks of glory, and while we're on earth, I think it's going to look a lot more like my sister-in-law, Madeline. When she was on a spring break mission trip in Mexico, we were building these little houses where you set up the wood and then the chicken wire, and then you spread cement over the chicken wire to create these houses that are more stable than what people were living in. Well, they tell you not to touch the cement with your bare skin because it's really acidic and it can burn you. Well, Madeline, who's actually kind of an idiot, was wearing shorts, and she was kneeling in front of this stucco house that she was making, and she had gloves on to protect her hands from the cement, obviously, but didn't realize she was kneeling on the cement itself. So to this day, she looks like the most awesome volleyball player. They all have scars on their knees, but it wasn't volleyball. It was kneeling and serving people. And I think her scars on her knees are worth more in terms of heavenly glory than any award or ceremony that we could receive. And that those scars in turn will be given to her as glory and crowned as honor when we are in heaven. But having true faith in God leads to that kind of joy, leads to that kind of glory. And ultimately, it leads to, of course, salvation. Back to our verse. Rejoice with joy that is inexpressible and filled with glory, obtaining the outcome of your faith, the salvation of your souls. Most of us don't need physical saving on a daily basis. Sometimes someone has to pull us out of harm's way, jump in front of a moving vehicle to save us. Those things are salvific. But the only thing that is true salvation is that of your soul. Every single one of us deserve the death that Christ died for us. And yet, he chose to take our place. Do you have faith in a God that sent his son to take your place so that we could live in joy and glory and have salvation? I know it's hard to understand because it all feels either so far away or not yet, because we're not in heaven yet, and that was so long ago. But there's a right now that matters, because giving your life to God in faith, to him and in his son, changes everything about how you live now. It changes your happiness to joy, and your worldly longing for glory to a heavenly longing for glory, and it saves you. It saves you. Do you have faith? Do you have joy? Do you have glory? And do you have salvation? And if you need to know more about these things, I would encourage you to talk to your small group leader tonight, because they would love to let you know how you can pray and receive this kind of lasting peace and eternal salvation. Would you pray with me as we close? Father God, thank you so much for just the way that you've crafted in your word the beauty of who you've made us to be, and how you've made us to live, and how you've made us to live with you in eternity. We thank you so much for that beautiful story of grace and truth and the bedrock of joy and glory and salvation. Help us to have faith. Help us when we have moments of doubt, when we don't know where to go. Help us to turn to you. Help us to look to you when we're suffering, not to anything else that this world has to offer, but to you and to you alone. Give us faith. Give us joy. Give us glory. Thank you for salvation. Amen.